Hello, and welcome to the Forsaken Podcast. I'm Grim Reaper, here with Magick.
Hello.
And boy, do we have a treat for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest on the show, the one, the only, Zoichan, the eternal hangsman, unyielding crucible of justice. Say hello to the people.
That's a lot of hype there, Grim, but good morning. Hello.
This is typical Grim there for you. Just so we... Well, before we get into that, just going to say that Rygo's falling a little behind at the moment. He may join us a little bit later, but in the meantime, yeah, we've got Zoichan here.
Yes, Rygo may join us, and to touch on the point you just made, Zoichan, about it being too much hype, I disagree. I don't think there's enough hype. It's a very polarizing figure, Zoichan. You know, it's a once in a generation type of immortal. You know, and I don't know if we have really seen in the past a name that rings out like that. Like, this is amongst a name like Viragoth in legendary status, in my opinion. You know, and in the modern era, I couldn't think of a more spectacular guest to have on this show, short of Anume herself. So it is an honor to have you on this podcast. And thank you for the time you have taken out to speak with us.
Well, thank you. That's very flattering. I think the last podcast I listened to was How to Get a Dragon, and Grim is doing a great job on getting a dragon. So that's how you do it, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's start off with some light questions. Some of the people have submitted their questions to you. First of all, how long have you played MUDs?
Oh, goodness. I've been playing MUDs since I was probably 13 years old. I remember we didn't have a computer at the house, but my grandmother did. And every time I would go to her house about 30 minutes away and I'd spend the night, I would stay up probably, oh, goodness grief, until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning playing a game called Dragon Realms. It was one of the original, I think, MUDs that kind of hit and made mainstream, and just really enjoyed that. Then had a friend in high school is the one who got me into Forsaken Lands, and I've been here since I'm 16. So I've been playing for a long time. I'm 36 now. Whoa, yeah, been playing for a long time.
So like 20 years now. More than that, 23.
Yeah, the majority of your life has been as a mudder. Think about that. You have played MUD for longer than you have not played MUDs.
Following up on that, when did you find Forsaken Lands?
I didn't find, well, Forsaken Lands found me through one of my friends, and that was just because we were kids in high school. This is back in the day where, back when, you know, Siren was running around, and obviously some of the big names, Crypticant and all the other M's, that, you know, if you just like walked into Central Commons and looked at them, they'd kill you. So I mean, that was, we found that hilarious. I think if I did that to somebody today, they probably wouldn't find it as funny as I did when I was 16 and getting slayed by Crypticant and everybody else back then. But yeah.
And what do you like most about FL? What does FL have that really just that you can't get anywhere else? Because it, you know, there is a very unique atmosphere here, and I think it's whatever it is that's in the water here is what keeps everybody. You know, what do you think that is? What are the things about it that you like so much?
Well, it's a new game every time you log in. Literally, it is a new game every time you log in. I'm a big fan of video games, period. I enjoy, or used to enjoy, haven't played in a while, Warcraft, World of Warcraft, enjoy MMOs, but every time I would log into Warcraft back when I was young, I was like, okay, well, I know I'm going to log in. I need to go get some potions, and then we're going to, you know, raid a Nixie or something like that. When you log into Forsaken Lands, you don't know what is going to happen. Literally, you don't know what kind of RP is going to hit you in the face, who else is going to be online. You don't know if when you went to sleep last night, you don't know if you wake up this morning and all of a sudden your cabal has started a war with somebody else and no crap. It's something new every day. And that's what I've always liked about this game. The role playing has always been great. The PK player killing has always been great, but just the freshness of the game is always appealing to me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It is a new game every time you log in, and it kind of gives you that ability. It's like I think I've said it before, but it's like a storybook that is constantly being written, and it will never have a finale. And each character that we create is kind of inserting ourselves into this, and together as a community, we are writing the story of a Baron, and I think that has grown. Like we've bonded, because I mean, everybody here that plays this game has played for probably 20 years at least. I mean, some of us probably don't even have friends that are that old, and we probably never, had as much interaction with somebody. Like we spend a lot of time together here, and it makes something special. And I don't think other video games can really give you that kind of hands-on like immersion, I guess. I'm trying not to use that word because I feel like it's overused sometimes, but you get it. You get that.
Okay, so if we're going down Rygo's list, what's the one thing you would change about Forsaken Lands if you could? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be one if you want to digress a little bit, but yeah, I mean, which one would you change?
That's really a tough question, because I really enjoy the game how it is.
Well, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a change of what we are doing to what we should else be doing. It could be something where what can be added to the game that you think might be beneficial, or is there anything that's not working in the game that you would maybe like to see either changed or removed?
Well, and what I was going to go with is first off, I think everybody would like to see more players, just more players in general. I'd like to see, it's not really a change for Forsaken Lands, more or less a change in people growing to love a text-based game, kind of like we have. I'd love to see a resurgence in MUDs and people, getting attached to them, people writing their own stories through these types of things. But if I had to change one thing, and it's actually something that I'm going to be working on changing myself, is very, very soon I'm going to be getting together with Vogue, and he doesn't know this yet, but we have been throwing around the idea for a long time on kind of maybe bi-weekly is not the right word for it, but maybe dungeons that are only open for about 2 weeks and then they're closed, and then another dungeon opens for 2 weeks. Just kind of like almost if you think about World of Warcraft, you've got an instance, you go in and you can run it and you can get loot. So thinking kind of along those lines, having like a magical tower pops up, often the volcano area, and you've got 2 weeks where you can run this and get some loot, and then the tower disappears back into the ethereal realm, and then all of a sudden demons have popped up underneath the woods west of Valmira, and jump in and take them out. Just fun little quests like that to give players something, because one of the main complaints I get, even though I think it's a new game every time I log in, one of the complaints I get is some people feel like the PvE side gets a little bit stale, and they kind of want something new. So if we can work on that and get some kind of new dungeons that might pop up once every other month that people can run for a couple of weeks and look forward to the next one, I would really like to see that kind of change come into Forsaken Lands, just for more player excitement to look forward to the next big event. Something else that was kind of on my mind when I started my career as an Immortal is really the same lines of that, having maybe a fair come to town where you can buy special equipment that's only open for 2 weeks or so, and then the fair closes down. Then 6 months later, the traveling fair opens back up, and you can play games in it or buy equipment or just whatever else. Just some interesting, unique type things to just add to the enjoyment of the game and something to look forward to. I think there's always a reason to add things for players to look forward to.
Oh, I agree with that entirely.
That's crazy that you said the fair, because literally yesterday I was going to type up a prayer post. Because I'd been playing Chrono Trigger, and at the beginning of Chrono Trigger, there's like the Millennium Fair that they're having, and they have all stuff. And I was like, man, that'd be cool if there's like an annual event in a Baron that was once a year where like unique shopkeepers popped up or whatever, and you could buy unique gear and stuff like that, or maybe do things to win certain coins or some type of currency to trade in for these unique items. So that's incredible that you guys are already on board with that kind of thing. I like that a lot.
You look for that. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see like because we can write basic programs for a fair that comes to town where you bob for apples and you reach into a mysterious box to see what kind of prize you pull out, and there's like maybe a 15% chance that the prize is like a ball of razor blades and your arm gets cut off or something like that. I mean, we can write stuff up like that. But I just think I just think that's fun. I mean, it's always interesting. We did really good work on the bazaar there where you can spend RP points. I think that was a fantastic area. And you can restring items, you can do that. But I'd love, maybe once a quarter or so, a fair to pop up where you can, get tokens or use your gold and go in and maybe restring an item or two or something along those lines, because that's just kind of the excitement of FL, is having something neat and being able to put your stamp on your own equipment or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, because that's part of the allure, is the customability of your character, and now being able to tailor your equipment and really bring your character into like a lifelike breathing thing. And with events that are held, like the popping up the random instances and stuff, that's brilliant. That gives people a reason to log in, and it really keeps the pot stirring, as it were. And I think that would do a lot for the increased interest, in my opinion, for sure. Let's see. Oh, Rygothrin wanted to know, who was your favorite staff member?
Overall, just like overarching, my favorite staff member from when I was a player and mostly of when I was an M. I didn't get the pleasure of working with him when I was just a fledgling M, but Vogue has always just really been a top-notch RPer. Whenever I was interacting with him as a mortal, whenever I was interacting with him as an M, he's just an all-around kind of a top-notch guy, and I really appreciate all the work and all the creativity he brings as far as role-playing and as far as building. I would say Vogue is there. Now, on the other hand of it, as far as just one of the most hardworking M that we have probably had in the last few years would honestly be Rygo. I mean, as far as, awarding points for journals, as far as digging through role-playing logs on the forums, as far as approving descriptions. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has put in countless hours and has not once complained about it. So I know you asked me which one was my favorite, but you've got two little kind of categories there. Vogue for RP, creativity building, Rygo just for being a fantastically well-rounded, hard-working immortal. I don't think that myself or Loth or Vogue or Anime or any of us could do the work that we try to do without Rygo making sure all the parts are moving and make sure all the players are getting their descriptions approved and pushing stuff around. So, yeah.
Excellent. Everybody, say thanks to Rygo next time you see him.
Please do. Please.
I got to hang out with him last week. We went to the Tool concert together. That's one solid dude right there. And he looks like he should be the leader of some type of barbaric motorcycle gang that will just kick your door in and kick your teeth out. That's exactly what that dude looks like. Do not mess with that dude. He will tear you apart.
He's got the beard of justice. Yeah, no, I've seen a picture of him.
Yeah, he's an imposing figure. Do not cross that man. He will snap you in half.
And yet at the same time, he's just this teddy bear.
Yeah,
He's a huge nerd. Yeah, but no, you look at him. Yeah, I wouldn't want to run into him in a dark alley. Absolutely not. Or in a bright alley, or just anywhere. So
yeah.
An open field of wildflowers.
Yeah, he'll ride you down on his motorcycle and kill you. Not really. He wouldn't do any of that. He's a great dude. Getting into some more of the, let's see, I guess some of the nitty gritty here. Here's a question. Magick, would you like to read this question? It says, question for the podcast. Currently, I'm driving, and I know how you feel about me reading and driving and texting and all of that.
The question is where beasts and where jaguars, whether or not they should have as much save versus spell that they do and have magic resist on top of that. Also with a wear power that does bleeding and wounding effects in whenever you do that. Should something like that be? I think is what the question is wanting to be. And if not, where do you think it should sit?
well, and there's no doubt that in the werebeast category, the Jaguar is definitely a very appealing option. It's got the magic resist, yes, the save versus spell, which is huge. However, you're looking at a quest. Really should be considered a quest class. You're looking at something that has to be applied for, has to be approved. You've got to have the RP for it. And while it has some definite pluses, some definite bonuses, it also is, not as offensive as some of the other quest werebeast forms. For example, I think Jaguar gets 2 attacks or so. I know Badger is going to get 3+. And not only do they get 3+ attacks, but their melee damage is going to be higher than a Jaguar just across the board. It's just going to. And they have extra little perks on that. So while, Jaguar is probably going to be super strong versus, a caster or communer, there's another little offset there where Badgers could probably just wreck melee. Vultures are actually a pretty dadgum neat class as well, and I don't see any of those running around. But if in my opinion, yes, you start talking about having, I think it was -25 and magic resist. Is that a lot? Yeah, that's a lot, and may need to come into a situation where we need to tone it down. And we've been systematically toning down classes and races that are just, ridiculously strong against caster communers. We saw it with halflings and some other things. The crux of the question, I guess, is Jaguar an overpowered werebeast form? And I can't really answer that, because that's like asking, well, okay, are vampires overpowered? Now, the problem that in my mind lies in the fact that you have to apply to be a vampire. You also have to apply to be a Jaguar werebeast. It's not one of your, you can go do the quest and just be a Jaguar. You can't do that. You have to apply for it. You have to be approved. So in the back of my mind, one of the problems with that is we as an Immortal staff may have gotten a little bit too willy-nilly on how we approve werebeast forms, and we may need to be a little bit more strict and stringent on, just seeing the application in and saying, okay, it's just a werebeast, I'll approve it. We need to look at that as it is, because it is a quest race, quest class. I mean, werebeast Jaguar is something you have to apply for. It's a quest class. So I think the problem is making sure that, we kind of make those approvable when they're ready to be approved, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And you're talking about, well, it's not so much a quest class as it is more of a quest race in this regard, or at least a half one in this aspect. But is it upheld to the same standards that all the other the other quest races are, like demons and undeads and avatars are?
Honestly, currently, the answer is probably not, but the response is it should be. It should be. So, and from now on out, I think we'll start making more of an effort. Because even like I said, Badger is great. Boar Wear Form has some really, really interesting abilities as well. And like I said, Vulture is great too. So there's we really need to start taking a look at some of this stuff and making sure we're approving it on the same guidelines almost as we would approve an undead or a demon or an avatar, which are all, the quest races. So yes.
Okay. The other, I think that's pretty well answered there. The other question on here is, considering the immediacy of player feedback via mediums such as Discord and other applications, do you think it's in the best interest of the game and game development to play to the whims of player demands? I know in the past that there have been some discussions, and frankly, they've kind of been witch hunts in this regard, to where people would complain about a certain aspect of the game and just grind on about it and on and on. And as such, sometimes they have been changed because of things like that. Do you think that should be maybe more common, less common?
Honestly, I think it should be less common than it is. It's we're in a very, very almost awkward state where there are some issues, and sometimes very valid issues, that players bring up. But if you compare us to any mainstream game where they have a staff of people not only debugging things but testing things, the resources we have are far fewer, and by resources I just mean manpower and time are far fewer than a staff of 150 coders that are working on the next Xbox 5, I don't know what Xbox number we're on now, game that comes out. So we are in a environment, and we're talking about society in a whole now rather than just Forsaken Lands. But we are in an environment where the squeakiest wheel gets the grease, and we've got a lot of squeaky wheels. We've got a lot of people who like to jump on a bandwagon and say, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. And when we change it, all of a sudden, you don't see that class or that race anymore. And people are like, well, wow, how come you don't see those anymore? Well, because you thought it was overpowered. We changed it, and now nobody wants to play one. I think we've got too much of an environment of when someone dies to somebody else, all of a sudden that class that beat them is overpowered. We've got no self-responsibility in society, much less in Forsaken Lands sometimes. So that being said, I love all of you players, but yeah, we've got no self-responsibility sometimes as far as why did I die?
So, okay, so you've got respect for the player base, but they have no idea how to balance the damn game, is what you're saying.
No, we've got ideas, and as far as the game balance, point out to me, and again, this might be a horrible question, especially on a podcast to ask, because I might just get railed against for asking this, but point out to me something that is currently right now just so ridiculously overpowered that it cannot be beat.
I don't know. I've gotten beaten by a variety of things. I don't even know where to start. Everything from my perspective is over.
Well, and right now you've got a couple of people, because right now I think people are railing against Savant clerics. Since this popped up about 6 months ago, maybe less, 3-4 months ago, and all of a sudden people think Savant's overpowered. If you go back a year, War Masters were overpowered. Well, what happened? What changed to where it's a level of personal responsibility? Okay, there very well may be people who are just better at player killing than I am. It doesn't make the class or the race overpowered. It's just the fact I might need to step my game up. That's it. You've got some strong PKers in the Savant cabal now. If someone would have said Savant's overpowered a year and a half ago, everybody would have laughed. So I think we've just got to take some self-responsibility in the fact that we might just need to learn how to player kill a little bit better.
Yeah, that's usually the answer.
And with that comes the fact that if you're dying, it's probably a mistake you made, and you need to realize that it's probably your mistake and not the fault of the other player being too powerful.
And that's what I was going to ask, because I mean, when we get into situations where we see a race and class combo, even a race class cabal combo, when we as a staff see that is okay, that is way too strong. Take Danfer, for instance. Take the dwarf paladin, the dwarf bard tribunal. I think the trick played Beldron, something along those lines. Dude was strong. Dude was ridiculously strong, and because of that, you can't play a dwarf bard now. And because of that, bards got toned down on their weapons and some of their songs a little bit. And that happens. Danfer, you will not see another, War Master halfling gladiator, because we looked at that and we saw, okay, no, this isn't just the guy's skill. I'm not saying he's not a good PKer. It's not just a guy's skill. This class is extremely over the top as far as the power creep and how strong someone can be. So the staff does a fairly decent job, as far as I'm concerned, in balancing race, class, cabal combos and what can be what. However, I do think when you see a feral cleric and savant and cabal, I see him killing people and people complaining, but I really don't see him as that strong. I just see him as outplaying some of the other players, and we get frustrated. We always get frustrated when we get outplayed. We do. I get frustrated when I get outplayed. So, but just because we get frustrated doesn't mean something has to change. It means we might need to change ourselves.
With some of the combos that have been looked at, and like you said, like the Dwarf Bard has been gone away, is there any possibility of something like that coming back if maybe the synergy between the things are modified a little bit? For example, like the Gladiator Thief and the circled sidestep that they've got.
Thieves are on a list, and is fairly long at this point, but thieves are on the list of what people are, and by people, I'm sorry, the staff are looking at potentially in the future making some changes to. And this is going to go back into the immediacy of player feedback through Discord, through prayer forum, of people complaining, okay, this is a squeaky wheel. We anytime a thief hits 50, we'll get 5 prayer posts about, oh my gosh, my backpack got stole, or blackjack prize overpowered, and that's really an annoyance, because again, you come back to the fact where most of these people complaining are in a cabal. They have 3,000 cabal points, whether it's talismans or pelts or whatever cabal you're in. You could have easily ownered your backpack, or you could have easily drank a brew and poisoned yourself to avoid the blackjack. It comes back to the fact that, while thieves are super annoying, and I know that because I've been annoyed by many thieves. I know that because I've played many thieves. Thieves are super annoying, but I don't think they're in any way, shape, or form overpowered. But once you start adding on top of thieves, okay, they're fairly strong with the murders. You start adding in an extra defense with a circle sidestep of War Master. You start adding in some of the other special forms of War Master. There's really some combos that just don't need to be allowed. And when those combos add on top of some racial benefits, such as the halfling's spell resistance, there's some stuff that is probably over the top. I do not foresee a halfling gladiator thief coming back, or even really a gladiator thief coming back, just because of there's a reason a thief only has 2 defenses. And once we start saying, okay, well, a thief only has 2 defenses, but if he goes on this cabal, now you've got 3 defenses. That's kind of covering one of the vulnerabilities of a thief. And we don't allow ferals to cover their fire vuln through Watcher. Why would we allow a thief to cover one of his defensive vulnerabilities through War Master? So I don't see that coming back in the near future.
So I have a question. How do you feel about the current consumable situation? Are there too many?
Yes.
Just straight
Right.
yes. Nothing else, just yes.
Yeah, there is.
Concerning consumables, in which regard are consumables too much? Are we talking like herbs? Are we talking like wands, the various aspects of wands, maybe some staves, or is it potions that are of concern? Pills? Is it all of the above, or is it just aspects here and there?
Kind of blows my mind again on consumables is there's too many as far as I am concerned. Now I'm not the only staff member around, but there's too many as far as I'm concerned. And there's also a plethora of them that don't even get used right now, which kind of blows my mind. There's some amazing staves that people just don't use. And I don't know if it's a lack of knowledge that they're there, if they're, relics of an old past that people just forgot about. But I mean, I can think of one off the top of my head in the Elven Kingdom. And I'm not going to say what it is because I want you people to get out there and do some looking around because there's stuff out there you don't know is there that is just ridiculously amazing. So get out there and find it and use it. But when herbs got introduced, I think it was a good move. I think herbs were a good move. I think it added a lot of flavor to the Forsaken Lands as far as a different type of consumable. But once we hit a situation, let's take the slow herb, for example, that was implemented and, we started to realize fairly quickly, maybe not quickly enough for some people, that, that was probably not the best idea just because of the regen you get off of it. There's a reason battle mages are the only class that have, the slow spell. So some of these class specific spells that are also in, consumable form, I'll even go as far as saying, in my opinion, again, I'm not the only staff member, there's some herbs and consumables that offer stone skin, which again, that is a class specific spell to battle mages. Well, I think Pasanis can get stone skin. Am I right there?
It's entirely possible, but yeah, I mean, it's extremely limited as far as class wise as to who get it. On top of that is spells like Stone Skill are self only. Unlike where Armor and Shield, you can put it on your party members. Stone Skin is you and you alone.
Right. And I mean, armor and shield, I mean, those 2 spells, which add up to 40 armor class, which are great. Those have been around forever. I mean, there's a stinking sword that you can, just say like armor and it'll give you armor if you're a goodie at least, or you can say shield and it'll give you shield. I mean, those have always been out there. But you start talking about more specific spells like slow, stone skin. There's one that gives flesh armor out there. And that flesh armor is, as far as I'm concerned, is just one specific class gets flesh armor. But there's an herb out there that just about anybody can grab it and use it. And I think consumables have gone a little bit too far when you look at how many people have access to spells and effects that were only really originally intended to be for one class.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with consumables is the fact that you can take like a warrior, for example, and suddenly he can be loaded to the top with all sorts of magical enchantments to himself. Armor, stone skin, flesh armor, protection, sanctuary, flight, all of these things. I mean, you can go invisible if he wants, pass door, all these, he can be loaded up. Essentially, he's a mage at this point.
Yeah,
And that just, and frenzy, exactly, frenzy, bless, all the, everything. And that's, I mean, that takes away from mages because the idea of being adept at magic, and that being your skill, I mean, you think you would be able to have something over the mundane competition, which doesn't dabble in magic.
Yeah, you basically turn out to be a pocket mage with a wide variety of weapons at your disposal.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I remember when we were talking about, 10, 15 years ago, you talk about a warrior. There was two ways that you could get protection, and they were not purchasable. They were not easily farmable. You could go for the magenta potion, I think, and I'm trying to remember the other one. I know there's another one out there. But for a goody or evil warrior now, I think you can just go load up on rosemary and just smoke it whenever you want to smoke it. So I think a large portion of why we are where we are as far as a lot of melee dominance, which it's kind of shifted to caster now that we've been working on saves, is because some of the massive consumables. Grim, you're absolutely right. When there's a warrior, don't even take warrior, take a ranger, for example. When there's a ranger that can get stone skin, armor, shield, flesh armor, and all of these buffs that were not really ever considered to be put on a ranger that has that much damage output, it kind of skews the scale of balance. So anyways, we've been taking good strides, in my opinion, as far as what can go where, but I think there's some still always room for improvement. And that's just a overarching truth to life. There's always room for improvement. So
Okay, so in a nutshell, herbs are a nice spice to life, but you believe that the variety is way too much.
So the answer is yes. It is a good spice for life, but there's always room for improvement on the variety of herbs that are available and the effects that they give and how easily they are obtained. Ease of acquiring something is always something that needs to be taken into account. And I bring up rosemary again. The ease of obtaining protection for a warrior or a berserker or any other class that doesn't have access to staves or scrolls. The fact that you can, go spend a couple thousand gold, I think it's 900 and I don't know, might be 10,000 at this point. But the ease of obtaining it is something that always needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I always thought maybe that scrolls and staves should have like the more powerful things, I guess, maybe, to keep it more magic inclusive, but maybe the herbs and potions perhaps cause illness if you use too much. Like if you smoke like 4 herbs in a row or something, you get loaded up on all these potions and herbs, like why wouldn't that make your character sick?
Oh, you're right. And I mean, the two of you have been playing Forsaken Lands for long enough to where I'm going to go out on a limb and say at least one point or another, you were in gear or you were in Discord or you're somewhere a long ways off from anywhere else. And all of a sudden, a warrior or a ranger or a thief or somebody else is like, oh crap, I'm getting hit by drug addiction. And I don't have any herbs. So do y'all have any? Because I'm about to die. So that was implemented and that was good. If I had any input, let's say that the rest of the staff disagrees with me that the array and the plethora of herbs available are completely fine. My next aspect there is, okay, well, let's just make them a little bit more detrimental to the player's health if they're actually going to be using all this. Drug addiction was great. That was amazing. But maybe make it a little bit more intense on what you've got to do to keep up with that addiction. So
well, if that's the case, then there's one main culprit in that regard, and that would be the neon herbs that give you like 150 hours of free time, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Like, where there is drug addiction, how about something like a drug overdose or something like that? You can overdose yourself and you get now a harmful effect because you've had so many different conflicting drugs in your system.
Yeah, I mean, we could sit there and come up with speculations and suggestions as to how this can be addressed. And if you wanted to do that, I mean, feel free to post any of the suggestions or on the prayer forum, and people will be able to go from there in that regard. To move this along, I'm running out of time anyway. There's two questions specifically, and when one's kind of up in the air. I mean, it's from Wade, and the question is, it said that we have too many M's already, or at least the phrase "we have too many M's already" gets thrown around quite a bit, but it doesn't actually feel that way due to time zones and where you sit, and obviously it's tied to a volunteer gig. But the question is there such a thing as too long of an M? Has any M, or should there be a length of time an M sits, kind of having like a rotating stock out? It was suggested before that maybe there's like well, if you want to look at it like the UN, to where you've got the Security Council and there's the permanent members on that, but then everybody else kind of rotates through. Should something like that be happening for the Immortal staff?
I'm going to take that as a two-part question, if that's okay. I'm going to address the first part as far as, are there too many M's? That is a very definite yes, but also a very definite no. Every member of our Immortal staff is typically addressing a specific need. So but on the yes part of it, there are too many M's, and this is my own downfall, and I think E's downfall and a couple of other of us is the job that we need to perform takes away from the player base, but also adds to the player base as well. For myself, for example, if I'm on my Immortal, I'm not just sitting there idling out. I'm sitting there, I'm interacting with players. It may not be with my M interacting, but it may be me, restrung as a wandering elf or a blind drow. Ask any, avatar guy that plays an avatar about their experience with the blind drow man, and they'll probably giggle at you because we interact with different people different ways. But while I am sitting there interacting with players, if I'm on my Immortal, there's one less mortal playing, if that makes sense. So what hurts my heart, so to speak, for FL, and again, it's not that we have too many M's, is when I log on my Immortal and there's more M's on than Morts. It's a balancing act. It really is, because we want to make sure that the M's that are hired on, and I say hired loosely because we don't get paid, that are coerced into volunteering, let's put it that way. We want to make sure, and that's one of always the starting statements is, hey, you're going to be an M, but we want you to still play Immortal. We need you to still play Immortal because we need that lifeblood in FL, and that's y'all. That's not us. The lifeblood of Forsaken Lands is the players, not the Immortals. So that's a very firm. Are there too many M's? Yeah, but no, because all of them are still serving a specific purpose.
Just to cut in here just real quick, you seem to be fading in and out quite often and quite badly in some cases.
Is my mic? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm using earbud and microphones. Is it cutting in and out? I'm probably turning my head, looking at the squirrels at the window, and yeah, sorry.
That's because you're terrible.
Hey, Rygo!
Ladies and gentlemen, Rygothrin.
It's the Players M in here. I heard that bus rolling by. Who'd you run over?
I don't run people over. I more or less just throw them underneath it. So yeah.
Okay, that being said, part 2 of that question then.
As far as there too many M's, I think the second part was, do we need a rotating M? I can answer that. That's not going to be a yes and a no. I think that is going to be definitely a no, mainly because of the access of not only information, but the access of abuse. And if we have to trust someone implicitly just to give them a level 52 status, just because of the access they have to the Forsaken Lands and everything inside of it. So I'm going to say no to that. Now, have there been in the past some immortals that have been immortals for too long and gotten lackadaisical in their duties? Sure. I mean, that happens, just like that happens if, people working at a Sonic, you've got not bartenders, car hops. Yeah, they call them car hops. They get lackadaisical in their duties. I mean, sure, I'll go along with that. With there have been in the past some M's that may need to have been phased out. But as far as a rotating, okay, you're in for 2 years and you're out, then we're going to bring in Wade, and Wade's out, then we're going to bring in Trick, and then Trick's out, and then we're just going to spice things up for 2 years and throw Fox into it, and then y'all are all screwed. No, I don't think that needs to really happen just because of the access of information to really everything, and the access and ease of changing things that even a level 52 can accomplish. So there just has to be a implicit level of trust, and that person has to earn it and has to be on board with it, and not be phased out just to bring somebody else in.
Yeah, because what if they were doing a really great job and then all of a sudden it's like, well, your term's up, you have to give it to somebody else, and you lose all that momentum. I don't see how that would be. I mean, I don't even understand how the rotating M idea would even be a good one. Like, is really you want to get the right people there, as opposed to a bunch of different people.
And really, it takes time to really learn like everything, all the aspects of being an M, from the rewards to all the different commands and how they work. So I mean, it took me probably quite a while, and there's still commands that I don't know or mess the syntax up on because I just don't use them too often. And so basically, as you're pretty much getting into it and getting your stride, I mean, you might have to rotate. I agree with Zoichan. I think 100% it's not a good idea, simply because of the trust that you might need. You don't want to just put anyone in there, because it's not just the commands, the immortal commands that you're responsible for, that where you can screw things up. It's also has to do with the information, as far as players' information, their IPs, and all that other information, where they live, because typically, in the DNS it has where they live, all that different stuff that they may not want out.
Yeah, and that I didn't even address as far as outside of the game, the privileges that an M has, because again, yeah, Rygo hit it on the head. If I wanted to, I could probably pull up exactly where Rygo lives and just go see him tomorrow. So there it has to be. I wish you would, Big Sexy. No, I'm scared of you. No, Grim already told me how big and scary you are, so I'm out on that. I'm gonna go visit somebody else like Loth, who's I could take Loth. But anyways.
You can take them in and out of game there.
Anyways, they're just, yeah, there's a bunch of privacy issues as well when you hire on an M, the ability and what they have on the forums, much less the games. So yeah, no, I would not encourage a rotation of M's whatsoever without some heavy changes on what an immortal can actually see and do.
Okay, fair enough. Last question that I'm going to have before I need to head out, and whether or not we stop here is a different story entirely. Any projects you have in the pipeline, status thereof, if you're willing to talk about any?
Sure. I mean, and I'll be more than happy to admit my own downfalls in this as well. Off Call is the new Off Call that's been going on for about 2 years now. It's honestly, we're in the phase of testing. I'm trying to push towards that as much as I can, because I don't. It would hurt me to release something and then the day after have 15 people post on prayer, well, this isn't working, this is bugged, this is terrible, I hate you, Zoichan. I do not ever want to see that. So currently, Off Call is done. I'm just waiting on Rygo to get in there and test the quest and make sure that there's no bugs to it. You remember that bus that we're putting people under? Anyways, but as far as the pipeline, I think I've already kind of hit on that, as far as hopefully some variable dungeons and hopefully down the road, some stuff with maybe a fair or a traveling carnival and things like that to have some games. And again, it just comes back to giving people a reason to log in and have fun. other than, okay, I'm going to log in and I'm going to go to Baron and get a ring of accuracy because it's the first of the month and maybe there's one in, or I'm going to log in and I'm going to see if I can find a group for gear or Discord. We need to make sure we give people a reason to log in that is fresh and that is as unique as possible as often as possible. So that's kind of what's on my plate in the back of my mind for hopefully the near future. So
excellent. Okay, that's going to be it from me. Where are we going to continue with this? Are you guys going to continue with the interview of Zoichan here?
Yeah, hold on. I'm fighting a pump right now. I just kicked its ass. Sorry.
You're fighting a pup, dude. You're kicking a puppy.
That's terrible, dude.
Guys, a pump. Yeah, I said a pump. P-U-M-P. Much like what
I heard
Zoichan.
puppy myself.
Okay, no, well, you know good and well that's not how I act towards animals. I'm a lover of the animals. No, it was a pool pump, like Zoichan put in his book.
Just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, Grim, lover of animals.
But yeah, I'm gonna drop from this and I'm gonna head out. So.
All right, see you, Magic.
Pleasure to have you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got at least maybe another 20 minutes in me before I'm going to have to get and actually go try and make some money. So I've got 20 minutes. If y'all want to stick around, ask some more questions, feel free. Or we can just and talk about FL stuff. So whatever you want.
We usually wrap it up around this time anyway and move over to general chat so we can just kind of talk to everybody. There was a question that wasn't gotten to though. I'm going to go ahead and hit that real quick. Let's talk about Tribunal for a moment. What do you see as the I guess the future goal for Tribunal? Do you ever see it turning into something like the Empire or something bigger than what it is?
Or what would you like to see from players as far as where they take it?
And Rygo just hit the nail on the head there. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my best not to pat myself or pat any other player on the back more than necessary, even though I'm going to pat somebody on the back. When I was, when Zoichan was immortal, there was, as far as I'm concerned, there was really no Tribunal immortal. So when he hit trusted or so in the Cabal, and because another immortal, I think the Watcher immortal at the time promoted me to trusted. Anyways, he kind of more or less just assumed the leadership position as immortal of the Cabal. And it kind of snowballed into there. And because I got no resistance, because there wasn't really a Tribunal immortal leadership, I kind of formed as a player what I wanted Tribunal to be, which back when Zoichan was an immortal, was a mortal, was kind of the evil, just the evil empire almost. And I could care less, it got to the point, and again, this is all within RP. It's not breaking rules. It's just role playing. People would send, that whole GAT forum, the grievance against tribunals. People would send that in, and it would be against Zoichan. But since there was no higher authority than Zoichan, he'd just say, meh, denied. And that's just, again, part of the RP where I thought it was fun, and some other players just thought it was fun and annoying, and some other players just thought it was horrible and I was cheating. It really wasn't. It was within the role play of that character. Moving forward from that, the last person I can think of, and I hate to pat Trick on the back, even though I'm going to, hey Trick, sorry. Belderon was another strong Tribunal role-played character where he assumed the leadership of the Cabal, and I am more than fine with that. I would rather see a mortal take leadership and run with the Cabal than me to have to oversee it. Now, I'm going to pop in and just cause grief and suffering just because that's how I role-play my immortal. But rarely will you see me jump in and say, hey, sorry, you're not taking Tribunal this way. Because I would rather see a mortal lead the Cabal and take a leadership position and show some responsibility and show a lot of effort than me to have to step in and do it as an immortal. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's a very refreshing answer. And I hope that all Cabals would be like that ultimately. I like the idea of a player not being hamstrung, as it were, by an immortal as far as to what could be done with the Cabal if the player reaches leader status of the Cabal.
And again, and it doesn't even have to be leader status. I mean, if there's only 4 people in the Cabal and trusted is the highest rank, run with it at trusted. There was a vampire that was Vampire Syndicate. What was his name? I can't pronounce it. It was Grassy, or Deacon was even a good example. But Grassy was the last one I could think of, and I'm probably butchering how you wanted his name to be pronounced. But he kind of assumed leadership of the Syndicate. And I think that's back when Anum, however you want to pronounce that, was the Syndicate portal. Yeah, she just kind of stepped back and let him run with it, but still stepped in and caused a little bit of fun and mischief whenever she could. Watcher's a good example. I think Ohms would be more than happy for Watcher to kind of somebody to step up and lead that Cabal. Even Nexus, I think most of us Immortals that are over Cabals would love to see strong RP characters to lead those. Rygo was a good example. He had a Necro that turned Lich that kind of just ran with Nexus, and we as Immortals just step back and let the Mortals run with it. So we want y'all to run with it. This is y'all's game, not ours. So does that make sense? Yeah, good enough.
Yes, that's great. That's a great response. And I think now is a good closing point for our segment. I think we've hit what the people wanted to hear. Unless Rygo, you have any questions?
I have a lot of questions, but
ask one.
That's not for this podcast.
Okay. Well, Zoichan, we appreciate you donating your time to talk to us for a little while. That was very, very informative. It's good to get insight like that, because I think some members of the community may think there's some type of immortal inactivity, or that nothing's being done, and I don't believe that. Just because it's not out there in the public does not mean that it's not happening. To quote Radiohead, wait, never mind, I'm not going to quote Radiohead.
Anyway. You're a creep? I mean, what?
Yeah, I'm a creep. So
classic Grim.
Yeah. Anyway, yes.
Thank you for taking the time out of your business schedule in order to come and appear on our little show.
Yeah.
Not a problem. And to quote Radiohead, a heart that's full up is like a landfill.
Yeah. There you
Don't
go.
do that again.
I don't know how
Don't quote Radiohead.
I don't know how that relates, but thank you.
Dress your niece and wash your swollen feet, to quote Radiohead. So yeah.
Shout out to Radiohead. Do you have any questions for us before?
Hello, podcast. Quote Radiohead.
Yeah. Now, do you have any questions for us before we close?
No, I really don't have any question. Well, I mean, the one question that I always have to anyone, and before I even ask that, I want to say that I appreciate you. I appreciate Magick, and I obviously, when Rygo goes back and listens to this, he'll realize that I appreciate him as well. I appreciate y'all for taking time to do this, to give players just something else to do as far as the Forsaken Lands community is concerned. It's not just, now it's not just a game, not just a forum, not just Discord, but they've got a podcast to listen to if they want to while they're driving down the road. I think that is fantastic. But the only question I would have to the two of you that are mortals in this podcast, what would you like? And I'm not even going to say as far as immortal staff as a whole. I'm just going to use me. I'll throw myself under the bus here. What would y'all like to see me do more of to make this game a better place for you?
Clean up all the pins on the general discussion section in the forums.
That's what you're going with?
I mean,
really?
That's the hill you want to die on?
I'm not dying on that hill. I'm climbing that hill and surviving on that hill.
I think that's a death hill.
No.
I mean, to be fair, there's like a Halloween Madness from 18 pin. So yeah, no, I have to clean that up.
Yeah. That, and I would say I would say update, current updates on the message of the day on the game, just so if somebody does log in, they see it's current. Really, my biggest qualms is with the website, but that's not even, So as far as for you, Zoichan, I don't know, man. I really couldn't tell you.
Well, I think the only bit that I had is I mentioned this to Rygo the other day is when posting on prayer, I think some sort of response to the players who post is better than nothing at all, because it sounds like you're just talking in the wind. Is even sitting there saying, okay, thank you, we'll discuss it, we'll think about it, maybe that type of deal should be enough to at least let people know that, hey, it has been heard.
Sure. Yeah, a more abundant, immortal voice back to the players that voice concerns and things like that, just to show that somebody cares and that somebody is listening. Because I think that's an uproar that I see on the Discord from time to time.
Or somebody has, read it, not necessarily agreed with it, not necessarily will implement it, but it's been at least read.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as that's concerned, I'd like to just butt in here. The only thing with that is that doesn't happen that often to where things are kind of left in the wind. And the reason that it typically does is because the question is specific for someone, or someone else has to answer. And so what ends up happening is you don't answer. Like for me, I won't answer because, well, I'm not the one that they're really asking the question, or maybe I'm not sure of the answer, so I'm waiting for someone who would know the answer to respond. And that person may not be around, and then we get sometimes we get 5-6 prayer posts a day, and it just disappears. And so that, while it's not a good excuse, I would say that's why that does happen. And yeah, I think that even myself and Zoichan would probably agree. I mean, someone can go in there and say, okay, we'll bring this up, or we'll talk about this, or some kind of response, so they don't feel like they're just getting ignored, because that's not the intent. We're not ignoring someone on purpose. It's just the fact that it's just bad timing and someone missed it, and no one reminded them, or that's typically why it happens. Unless of course it's Wade. Unless it's Wade, and then we ignore him on purpose.
who's
For
outright
sure,
been blocked.
100%.
He's been blocked on the prayer forums completely. So
Yeah, no.
Who's that?
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, anyways, just to deal with a response. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're good. You're right. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is, or maybe they do and just don't care, is just because you've got a prayer thread that doesn't have a response that you can see, doesn't mean we haven't been responding to that in that prayer thread, just so the rest of us can see it while we're brainstorming ideas of taking care of the issue. We've got this fancy little, whether you like it or not, it's definitely got a use, and it's a good feature of the forums where we can respond to one of your prayer threads to where only the other staff can see our response. Now, sometimes our responses are just so we can, again, make fun of Wade or anybody else that we just want to make fun of. Chief, we definitely make fun of Chief a lot. But, some of those things, but most of it is just so we can brainstorm as a staff and say, okay, no, you know what? He's got a really good point. Let's talk about this. And it's just, hidden so we can discuss it rather than just have it out there where somebody can screenshot it to say, I told you everything like this was overpowered. But again, we rarely ignore any platform. So yeah. Out of curiosity, is anybody? I just tabbed over into the general forum, and apparently there's a lot of people, or the general in Discord. Have we missed any questions that might have popped up there? Has anybody been keeping an eye on that?
I haven't.
Looks like Volg has, but he's not talking, even though he can.
Volg, yeah, he's still talking. Volg, have we missed anything? You've been listening to the podcast and been on general Discord. Have we missed anything that needs to be addressed, dude?
You said run, man. Oh, he said you guys are good.
Okay, last chance to dance. Anybody got a question? Anybody got a question at all for Zoichan?
I'll tell you one thing, and this just came up because I just read what Kaz just said. And I don't even scroll up to look. I'm going to answer a question that might have been asked, but might just be me asking myself. One thing that I would love to see reworked and given some flavor would be the battle mage class. The battle mage class, don't get me wrong, is kind of like the paladin class. It's very, very well-rounded, but I think there's some opportunity for some flavor in the battle mage class. And if again, I think there's a thread on general or polls or somewhere on the forums for ideas on battle mage classes, just perks. I would love to see some more ideas on that, and I would love to see when time is allowed for our coder to get in and put some flavor into that class.
So something like take a reflective shield, and instead of being just mundane, you'd be able to switch it between magic and mundane for the duration of that spell.
Sure, yeah. As long as you've got the timer and you can't just switch it back and forth all willy-nilly, that'd be okay. Or even, I'd love to see somebody brought up, and it might have been Zrotham of all people, brought up, I think, having like, say, fire weapons like the fire lance that has a smoke proc. I'd love to see that smoke proc off of a dancing weapon. I think that's a great idea and would add some interesting flavor to what weapons people actually use to dance versus, okay, well, is it magical and heavy? I mean, that's really the only two things people look at. Is it heavy and is it magical or is it mundane? I'd love to see some flavor in what people actually pick to dance. I mean, get a vampiric touch one so I get a little bit of a heal off of it, or get something that might fairy fog somebody, this Vorpal or something like that. I'd love to see some stuff like that go into it. So
yeah, direct all your suggestions to the forum under the suggestions or on prayer.
There you go, because I do look at the prayer forum, and classes that are well-rounded, we know round things aren't usually sharp unless they are a pizza cutter. So take their well-rounded classes and give them more of a pizza cutter edge.
Oh my God. Classic Grim.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks for listening to today's episode of the Forsaken Podcast. Again, special thanks to Zoichan for popping in here and giving us his thoughts on the world and other things.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciated.
It was my pleasure. I hope someday I can come back. So unless I get fired for all the things I said today. So yeah, maybe we'll see you around.
Love that.
I can't wait to listen to this.
All right, guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Forsaken Podcast.